I was interviewing this lady, and she's like, it's the first time I feel like I don't have to take a break from my normal life to start the dieting. Let's say you want to log a bunch of ingredients for your sandwich. Log that in a ChatGPT or log that in, I don't know, another app. Do it a few times. You will probably get a different answer every single time. Why?
Oh,
The AI is just making an estimation on the fly every single time. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is this whole all or nothing mentality, where people say
mm,
like, oh, I'm going to start my diet now. And then
yeah,
I'm going to suddenly completely change how I eat and how I do things. And from what I've seen, that is less chances for long-term results. You're much
yeah.
better off making small changes.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm Tong, and I'm here as always with my co-host Adi. And today we're also with a special guest, Philip. Philip is a co-founder and the CEO of Welling, an AI-powered app that helps users track macros, nutrition, and just overall wellness. So it's great to have you on the show, Philip. But instead of me spilling all the details, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. I always did kind of like startups when I was a student, tried things, but not never really very serious. And I wanted to kind of go back in there, uh, kind of like quit my job, not without anything, and then this kind of opportunity came on board to join Antler in Singapore.
Okay.
I'm not sure if people are familiar with Antler, but it is kind of like one step even before an accelerator. So you can join as an individual, not join as a
Yeah.
startup.
Yeah.
And that whole idea is for people to, they want to start a company but have troubles getting started. And the big pain point is really about finding a co-founder.
Mm,
So I think that pain point has only grown now that more and more people want to do startups. You see
mm-hmm.
more and more platforms out there helping people find a co-founder. Anyway, they were one of those, but like in person. Um, so I joined that program like literally Q1 2020, right before COVID.
Wow.
I find my co-founder at the time, and we ended up starting a company together. This was a somewhat experimental company because obviously at the time people couldn't travel, people were doing remote work from home, and then we were like, okay, well, I used to travel a lot, and like, hey, can we do like remote travel from home? We had this idea,
Okay.
and yeah, literally we're like, okay, well, how would this work? Well, you had all these travel guides around the world that were
Mm-hmm.
have no jobs because there was literally no travel, right? And then you had
Yeah.
only people sitting at home. So like, okay,
Yeah.
well, maybe we can connect them. So
Yeah.
we literally had tour guides that would like, you would have a Zoom call, you would video call with a tour guide, and the tour guide would just do his or her tour in their city.
Wow.
They would just walk their route and tell their stories and show you things. Literally, like they would have like a gimbal or something, and like show
Yeah.
like, walk people around. And it was a video call. It was a real time, so you could talk to the person. You could ask
Yeah.
questions like, "Oh, what's that? What's that?" And they would like. Um, that was kind of funny. I guess we did that for let's say like a few months as a testing, and we got some people who liked it, and but it was honestly it was so difficult because like the video call outside running on a depending on where you were, we had a tour guide. He was like in Cape Town. He probably had
Mm.
like a shitty internet connection, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
very blurry and stuff. Anyway, but then we got a request. I was in Korea at the time, and then we got a request to attend a trade show. It was a guy in the
Mm-hmm.
UK, and he said, "Hey, instead of showing me like this tourist thing, can you send the person to a trade show?" And I
Mm.
want to see the trade show, like for work
Yeah.
purposes. And we did that, and that went actually really well. I was like, wait, this is like so much better, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's the ticket prices went up. It was for work, so it was more functional.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of pivoted to B2B, and then we ended up doing like remote trade show visits, inbound and outbound of Korea. Um, Now, that business was actually really hard to run operationally, as you can imagine. Um,
Yeah.
Long story short, 2 years later, we did an acqui-hire to a large Korean travel company in Korea. I ended up working there for a bit, and then basically finished that early 2023, and found a new co-founder to work on my current company called Welling.
Tell us about Welling and what it does.
Yeah, so like when I was kind of exploring, here's the thing, when obviously ChatGPT came out, I think it was clear for everyone that, okay, this is going to be the new platform.
Yeah.
I always felt like God gave me another chance. Like I was
Mm.
too young when the internet came out, right? And then I kind of missed mobile and social. You know,
Yeah.
um, didn't build the Ubers, right? And then God was like, you know what? I'll give you one more shot.
Yeah.
Here you go, language models.
Yeah.
The whole world's gonna change, and we're leveling the playing field, and everyone is starting from zero.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, no time to take a break. Immediately dove in, start building, start understanding what it can do. And obviously, one of the great things it can do at the time is, well, still is like really good in understanding what people are saying and understanding. But I think
Mm-hmm.
at the time it was already really clear to me. People were using kind of ChatGPT for a few things. One, the main one is probably just to quickly look up some information, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Second one is to help you manipulate text. This is still kind of the main use case, I would say. Help you write an
Mm-hmm.
email, summarize things, etc. But then the third one was it helped you do things. And this
Mm.
was, not very well known. And now, of course, it's called agents and help you do things. But at the time, I had a nutrition coach. When I was in Korea, I had a virtual assistant, like an actual person, but I could
Mm-hmm.
chat with because there's a language barrier. So if I needed something, like I don't know, book a restaurant or something, then I could just tell this person to help me do that. And when I was working as a consultant, I also had a business travel agent, which I also could just chat, and then he would just go and do things for me. Like I would say, hey, I need to get a flight from here to here, and then he would literally, okay, give me a minute, and give me like three options. So this whole empowerment of having like your own assistant where I can
Mm-hmm.
just tell it to do things and it would just go off and do it for me. I was like, huh, that's interesting. Like, and me and my co-founder were passionate about health and said, hey, what can we do in health and give this experience to people? And he went through a weight loss journey himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I come from a family with a lot of diabetes, especially on my dad's side. So I grew up with this whole notion around, healthier eating and watch out for what you're eating, etc. So we both
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be something in health and then maybe more into nutrition. So
Yeah.
we just started off with like, well, it would be nice. And my experience with my AI nutrition coach at the time was pretty bad, if I'm being honest. So I was like, hey, I think we can do this better, you know. And that was very much the problem that we wanted to solve at the time. Is like, hey, how can we, obesity rates are still rising, um, and we want people to improve their diet. Can we kind of like give people a AI nutrition coach? You know,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
that's how it started. And then when we started kind of going to it and gave the product, put the hands into, give the product into hands of people, the more practical pain point we found is just that, when people need to lose weight, um, the first thing they need to do is actually not to go to the gym. We say you should go to the kitchen. That's what we would say. You need to kind of
Mm.
really control what you're eating or manage what you're eating. And then that's when people end up in, okay, well, now I need a tool to help me understand what I'm eating throughout the day. That's why you have these food trackers, the calorie trackers, and that's actually an incredible pain point, like a very practical pain point.
Yeah.
Like you have weight loss, and then you need to like understand what you're eating, so you need to track it.
Yeah.
And we saw that there's a lot of demands for it if you go into the App Store. And it's one of the key things you need to do if you want to go through weight loss. And then we were like, well, again, language models are really good at understanding what you're saying. Can I just tell AI what I ate? And based off that, can it then just help me estimate the calories and macros? Mind you, this was spring 2023. Okay. Now it's kind of like,
Yeah.
like, no,
Yeah.
obviously it can
Right.
Now
do
it's
that.
early days.
You
Yeah.
know, but back
Mm.
in the day, this was like 5 months after ChatGPT came out, we didn't really know yet what it was able to do, what it wasn't able to do, what use cases.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really how it started. We said, hey, let's build a product where I can just tell an AI what I ate, and based
Mm.
off the description, it can help me make an estimation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it so much easier for people to track what they've been eating throughout the day
Yeah.
and help them to be really mindful about, the calories that they're consuming.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like really how it started. And honestly, it still is the core of the product. So what is Welling? So um, it's I would say it's holistically a more like an AI weight loss coach, and more
Mm-hmm.
practically, it really just helps you easily understand what you're eating throughout the day, by very simplifying your tracking process. So you
Mhm.
can send a description, you can use voice, you can send, of course, a photo. And based off that, we make an estimation of the calories, the macros, and the fiber. At the same time, what else does a coach help you with? It helps you, of course, set the targets. It helps you plan. We give feedback on what you're eating. And that feedback is based off your goals. You need to actually input some of your diet preferences. Maybe you have some
Mhm.
different dietary guidelines that you got. You can input all of that so you can actually customize your AI. We're pretty unique in that.
Mhm.
And that goes into, our feedback to you, or if you have any questions. And then I would say the last component, but maybe even the most important one, is um, we spend a lot of time in kind of like how to get people to be consistent,
Mhm.
and how to almost like emotionally support people. Here's the thing: eventually, um, it's 80% of the work will be about, can you be really consistent? Can you keep going? You know, if you're just gonna track your food for like a few weeks and then you're like, oh, you know what, this is horrible, I'm gonna stop. No one
Mhm.
wins.
Yeah.
So um, one of the key things if you use our app, for example, is we don't give labels to food at all. You use a lot of the other calorie tracking apps. You have red labels, yellow labels, green labels,
Mhm.
good food, bad food, healthy, unhealthy, um, guilty pleasures. Like we,
Yeah.
we, we try to really stay away from this whole judgment about the food itself.
Mhm.
First of all, we don't believe in unhealthy food or like food that you shouldn't or are not allowed to eat. You can eat anything, but it's all about kind of portion. So
Moderation.
we
Yeah.
are exactly moderation. Like if you need dessert, by all means go for it, right? And don't kill yourself in restricting yourself, and then just allocate like a small portion of your diet to it. Let's say 10% of your calories or 15% of your calories. Keep that
Mhm.
for like the fun foods. Make sure the other 80, 85% you eat really well, high protein, clean. Um, anyway, so that last part I think is very important. So you see in our app, no judgment. When you go over, it doesn't suddenly turn into like alarm bells, when you see in other
Yeah.
apps as well. And this is actually very important. I can tell you a story if you guys want to hear about it. But and then one of the things is like positive reinforcement.
Yep.
So we really focus on positive reinforcement. If you eat really well, high protein, unprocessed food, we say, hey, great. You know, try to try to put more of that in your meal. If you had a piece of chocolate cake while you were already over, we're not gonna be like calling you out. You know
Mhm.
what I
Yeah.
mean? We're just gonna say, all right, might not be the best choice right now, but it's fine. Just enjoy it. We'll pick it up tomorrow. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of at the essence the product. We try to really give people this experience of they have their own support system, their own weight loss coach, nutrition coach at hand, that is super smart in helping you track your calories.
Yeah.
But it's really this notion of, oh, I just have someone there that I can always tap into for any
Mhm.
help that I need. Um, I think that's very important in helping people reach their goal. That's what we try to create.
Yeah. The first thing that I was thinking, and Adi as well, we had a discussion before as well, about welling, was the accuracy of AI,
Yeah,
because entering entering what you're eating manually appears to be, like, for us at least, it just seems to be a
yeah,
little bit more reliable. What are
yeah,
your opinions on that? Yeah.
yeah. I think a few notes on that. So right off the bat, we have obviously done our own comparison tests.
Right.
I've done multiple weeks of logging on multiple apps, but also just versus just inputting in Welling
Yep.
and weighing the food. Okay.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
would just do a comparison of actually weighing the food so I know exactly what it is and just inputting it.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. On a single item or a single food log, it could be quite off. Okay.
Hmm.
It could be 50% up or down. However,
Hmm.
if you check towards 10,000 calories, which is what someone would be eating roughly like in 5 days, 7 days if you're like eating really little, the error rate would go down to less than 10%. Actually, in our test, it was both times less than 5%, but let's just say less than 10%.
Right.
That's
Okay.
pretty good. That is
Yeah.
arguably better than you can do on any other app without weighing your food. Let's be honest. Most people don't weigh their food, right? When they're just using,
Yeah.
like, this
Yeah.
is only like people that are very intense about their journey that are like weighing all their foods. Most, like
Yeah.
obviously 98% of people do not do that,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I can say about the accuracy. We're trying to improve it to be even hitting those error rates on every single log. It's very difficult. Why is it
Yeah.
so difficult? Obviously, food is very messy.
Mm-hmm.
There are literally a million types of food that you can prepare in a million different ways. So you have a trillion combination of what you could
Mm-hmm.
be potentially logging. Not only that, combine that with language, which is messy and not deterministic, because you can describe food in different ways, but you're meaning
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. So this is a very, very, very hard problem to solve, you know,
Yeah.
to be very consistent and reliable. But again, in our test, actually the accuracy is very good if you keep doing it.
Mm.
The other thing I would say, generally speaking, is I would tell always our users to not super obsess about, blogging every single gram and hitting every single calorie. It's not sustainable, you
Mm.
know? And that's really where we saw the opportunity, where most of these apps, at least before all these AI photos apps came out, but let's call it like MyFitnessPal and what the kind of the
Yeah.
global solution out there, they're very much made if you want to be very precise, right?
Mm.
Like if you log something, they were like, okay, well, how many grams was that? And blah, blah, blah. And then most
Yeah.
people were like, I don't know. It was a kind of standard portion. I don't
Yeah.
know how many grams that was.
Yeah.
Don't ask me. How about you just pick the average of what that would be? I don't know. I just had a
Yeah.
normal portion. Now, in our survey, most people log that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, and knowing that, we always say like, you're much better off being 80% accurate, and 80% consistent, but for a very long time, many months, 6 months to a year, where you really develop these habits, than trying to be perfect for 100%. And after 2 weeks, you're like, I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
Forget about it. And you
Yeah.
just throw the whole thing away and you stop being mindful about what you're eating completely, like, so that's really our philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's what we have seen. I think that's why we got some pretty good adoption. Most people are actually okay with kind of ballpark. They just need to have that consciousness around what have I been eating throughout the day,
Mm.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, if you are some performance athlete or you're a bodybuilder and you want to be tracking it to the gram and to the calories, welding is not for you. You
Mm.
can, but that's not really what we optimize the product for.
Mm.
Yeah.
You can be super precise. You can literally just say it. I had 200 grams of whatever, and it will just log it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not really the person we made the app for.
Mm. No, I think that's a very good point as well. Because I remember, like, I think maybe a couple of years ago, a friend recommended, like, for me to do calorie in and out, right? Like, determining how many calories I'm intaking and how much I'm losing. And I was just super frustrated. Like, I can't, like, look at every single label and like track it down, and just super painful. So
Dude,
I just gave that
exactly,
up.
man.
So
Yeah.
I guess that would certainly solve that problem, because I think a part of the problem is, like, when someone is constantly and consistently, logging their calories, or like just their food choices as well, that forms a good habit, and it makes them more conscious, just the act of logging it. And since they don't really need to worry too much about the calories, or like counting how much they're consuming, just so that they're aware of it, also makes a huge difference in their weight loss journey. Would you say that's correct?
No, absolutely. So that's really what we're optimizing for. Now,
Yeah.
here's the thing, right? Like the targets that we set, I mean, if you pick the goal of weight loss, it will already be in a deficit.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what we're going for. We're going for consistently trying to eat in a deficit. One
Yeah.
day it might be a little bit less or more than the other ones, but
Yeah.
that's really the goal. Try to get you to be just consistently eating in a deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would say, yeah, definitely. Like, I'm not sure if you guys ever done calorie tracking yourself. I'm obviously using the product. without having to obsess about the exact calories and grams. Just the fact that I'm going to log it, I take a photo of it, Welling tells me something about it, just keeps me a little bit more on my toes, you
Mm.
know. And we hear stories where people say like, oh, they either said, okay, well maybe I should cut down on this portion or eat less of it,
Yeah.
or yeah, they basically yeah, acknowledge what you just said. It keeps
Yeah.
me being
Yeah.
mindful.
Yeah. And then the other question I have is like, how do you deal with cuisines? Because as an Indian, I think that's something um, I struggle with as well. Like, just because,
Yeah.
we have such a variety and it's hard to track, home cooked food. Like, how does Welling deal with that?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the interesting thing. We started the company in Singapore in
Yeah.
Asia, um,
Yeah.
for different business reasons. But um, and the initial pain point that we tried to solve was, oh, keying in and searching the food in one of these traditional calorie tracking apps is very, very tedious to do, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
like about the buttons, the UI is kind of crappy. Um, And we started in Singapore. Now, then we got users and they adopt the product. And then I obviously do my user interview as a good startup founder would. And I talk to them, hey, why are you using the product? And then yes, they said it's easier to use. But then I said, why is it easy to use? It was because it has a lot of the Asian food data, or it understood better their local foods.
Mm.
That's why, because one of the pain points, of course, with the other apps is they're very much Western focused.
Yeah.
Why are they Western focused, by the way? Because it's user inputted data. A lot of people don't know this, but basically, most of the data that you see on like in MyFitnessPal are inputted by other people.
Mm.
And so if you market the solution in the Western market, then obviously you only get what Western people are eating in
Yeah.
your database. Now, so we heard that and like, huh, interesting. We did not know that. Um, uh, and and once we heard that, we spent a lot of time in getting kind of like the local cuisine food data in the Welling database. So, for example, we scraped the what is it called? Singaporean nutrient and energy. It's something like the Singaporean USDA database, let's say.
Yeah.
They have a lot of kind of like local food dishes with the calorie and the macro breakdown. We took those kind of pre-processed and cleaned them up, load them into our database. We did a really big exercise. We make sure we have all the fair price product. Fair price is a local supermarket in Singapore. We make sure we have those.
Mm.
So we definitely acknowledge this problem,
Yeah.
and I think that's also where really the opportunity is.
Yeah.
I feel like this insight around non-Western markets having issues using these apps because it lacks local food data is potentially very replicable in other markets. Of
Yeah.
course, in Asia, but I think, for example, in the Middle East, I can actually imagine that they have a very similar problem: rising
Mm.
obesity rates, and they have very much their own local food. And I'm pretty sure that food will also be kind of not represented very well in like a MyFitnessPal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really one of the insights that we're writing on. We really make sure that we have that data every time we go into a country. We make sure we have little kind of the local foods in our database.
Going back a little bit to the consistency part of the app, you want your users to, log in what they eat every single day, right? Is there a way for you to do that?
Ideally, every day. Actually, our retention rates for people doing it every day, every single day, is multiples of industry standards. I think we got something there, and I think part of it is maybe how we designed the product. So again, one of the key things is the whole experience is as if you're talking with your coach. So we make it very effortless. Um, but talking with your coach is not just effortless for people to do and stay consistent. What it does is it almost, again, it creates this experience of I have support. One of the key pieces of feedback that we get from our users is they're like, oh, it doesn't really feel like I'm logging my food. It just feels like I'm telling my friend what I ate. That's
Mm.
great. You know what I mean? Like, people are chatting all the time. Like,
Mm.
how do you stay consistent chatting? Well, no, it's just chatting. That's just like a very innate behavior that we all can do. So we spent a lot of effort actually doing that. I would argue that we are literally the only solution out there where you have a single chat interface and you can just say whatever and it will handle it. Now, that
Mm.
sounds trivial because we're all used to ChatGPT, but even ChatGPT actually does not do that. It doesn't
Yeah.
write your data into a database that you can then manipulate on the chat, right? If you can tell ChatGPT like, hey, help me change this profile, and then oh wait, no, actually no, change it this way, and help me update my logs here. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
have that yet. Um, we have that, and we spend a lot of time creating that, and it's actually not a very trivial. It's actually pretty difficult to do. But the trade-off is we get people to be very consistent because it's so effortless. You can just tell, hey, I ate this. Oh, I worked out. Or you don't have to click any additional buttons. It will understand it and just do it. You can
Mm.
even say, hey, I had the same lunch as last Tuesday. It understands that. I had the leftover chicken from Wednesday's dinner. It would go and look
Yeah.
up, okay, what chicken did you have? And would log that.
Yeah.
So whatever you can kind of come up with, and again, as if you have like a super smart coach to your service, what would you tell this person? Literally, like an assistant, like, oh yeah, log my same lunch as Wednesday, right? And then just go off and do that, you know. And again, I think that's why we are very different. We didn't look at an existing calorie tracking app and AI fight features, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like, oh, let's make the logging a little bit better. Let's make this a little bit better. And no, we looked at a coach or an assistant because I had those and said, how can we bring that? How can we AI-fy the assistant and the coach that I had at the time and bring that to people? And of course, one of the key things that makes people feel very like empowered is, oh, I can just tell running what to do and it will just go off and do it for me.
Mm.
That feels great. So I think that's actually one of the key parts of why people can be consistent with us. It's just how we design the product, how we make it. I guess you can call it effortless, or this experience of, oh, I'm just interacting with someone, and that's obviously a very low bar, right? Just interacting with someone. You chat with people all the time, and then of course we have other things. We have actually, I think we're pretty unique in that as well. We get planning reminders. Why is it, for example, so difficult for people to be eating well? People are busy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, for example, something very, very small. We know dinner is like the most difficult one for people to eat, quote, healthy. They're tired, right? And when people are tired and busy, they just eat whatever is convenient, not necessarily whatever is right. They order delivery, whatever. So at 5 p.m., we just give you a quick reminder. Hey, man, for dinner or for the rest of the day, you still have so many calories left, so much protein. Do you need any help planning your dinner,
Mm.
right? Like just to keep people kind of like, help them plan, help them be more mindful. In the morning, we tell you how you did yesterday. Is that okay? This is how you did yesterday. You went a little bit
Mm-hmm.
over, and you were a little bit short of protein. So maybe for today, you want to be mindful of that. Do you need any help, planning your day? You
Yeah.
know. Um, so that's really on the. What is a good coach? A good coach is someone who is proactive
Mm.
and considerate, you know, who, again, people are busy, don't want to think about it. So if you can just tell me already up front and be very considerate, that's really the experience that we try to create, a very proactive coach that is considerate, can look at how it's going and just tells me without me having to necessarily ask for it.
Mm.
Yeah. And what happens, like, let's say I want help with my dinner. Does it give recommendations on what you can eat or like potentially links to things I can buy or order?
We don't have that last one yet.
Okay.
Right now, it just kind of looks at your profile, your
Yeah.
goals, looks obviously at where you are, and will give you suggestions that fit in how you would potentially make up the rest of the day. So let's say you have 500 calories left and you still want to hit 20 grams of
Mm.
protein, it will try to get close to that when it recommends things.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, of course, as localized to where you are. And some people do have, specific maybe other requirements. I don't know, like they want to eat less sodium or something like
Yeah.
that, or so we'll
Yeah.
try to take all that kind of things into account.
Mm.
I think we can improve, if I'm being very honest, in the whole food recommendation, food suggestion, even the meal planning part. I think we are not strong enough yet there.
Yeah.
So that is definitely an improvement area for us.
How does Welling do with home cooked meals? Is it uh, do you like if you take a photo of your home cooked meal, would it be able to quickly identify what's on the plate? Is
I would say it's kind of like this. If you think a human can get close to it, Welling can get close to it. Okay, what do I mean by that? If you hit a bunch of other items under a different food, you know what I mean? And it
yeah.
can't see that, then it's not entirely fair. Now, sometimes it can because it can kind of deduce if it sees that you're trying to make a dish, but we're trying to actually make it more and more smart in terms of like not necessarily looking at a dish, but really like breaking down the dish.
Mm,
Like okay, I see this. These are usually the ingredients of a dish. I'll take that into account. I see maybe you added something else to it. Um, but honestly, it's pretty good at it.
Hmm.
And technology-wise, there are kind of two things. One, of course, let's be honest, the existing foundational models are getting better and better in just recognizing objects,
Yeah.
and recognizing dishes. Um, we try to do some work there, but we're not gonna make any type of improvement that the foundational models will do. They will do
Hmm.
that for us. But then additionally, you need to come up with some so we write our own kind of algorithm on how to interpret, for example, what you're seeing,
Yeah.
yeah.
and then like how to assign the portions to that. And so we do our own kind of middle layer of how to interpret the food and how to translate either an image or words into calories. So
Hmm.
let's say like language models are really good in kind of detecting it, but then someone still needs to tell it how to actually make an estimation. Um, if you say a bowl of rice, it might be a different bowl than your bowl of rice. So yeah, we try to of course leverage the foundation models, and they do a great job. And then we build something in between to make it even better in terms of like um, accuracy and estimations.
Yeah. So it's more specialized for this particular
But
niche.
I'll tell you one thing that is, again, I think very unique to us and important to users that other tools don't have. Go and try it out. Let's say you want to log, I don't know, a bunch of ingredients for your sandwich. Okay, try it out. Let's
Yeah.
say you have 5 ingredients. Log that in a ChatGPT or log that in, I don't know, another kind of app. Uh, do it a few times. You will probably get a different answer every single time. Why?
Oh.
The AI is just making an estimation on the fly every single time. And we
Mm-hmm.
know how these language models work. They just make a new estimation every single time. You
Yeah.
do that in Welling, you will get 5 times the same estimation. This is very difficult to do.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, because we do a lot of stuff in the middle. Don't want to tell everything, but
Yeah.
but try it. You will log the same thing in Welling. You get 5 times the same answer. You do that 5 times in the ChatGPT or in order to, you get 5 times a different answer. Now this
Yeah.
drives people nuts,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Because people want to be somewhat accurate. So if you one time say it's like, you log literally the same thing. I had a sandwich with 2 slices of ham. And you do that in ChatGPT, and one time it says, oh, it's 100 calories, and the next day it says it's 120. And you're like, wait, what? Yesterday you said what was 100? I don't get it.
Yeah.
And you do it again, and then it says like 90. It drives people nuts. Like, what is it? What is it actually? Right?
No, that makes sense.
In our case, you'll get 5 times the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that would be really important if someone's trying to track their calories and figure out what they want to eat.
Yeah.
Um, I also want to ask, like, is there a motivation system or reward system that's built into the app?
Of course, we show progress. Actually, that's, I would say, the key thing. So we work with very very closely. She's one of our former advisors, a very experienced weight loss coach. Um, actually feeding back progress to people. Now, progress could be different things. Progress could be, of course, the final progress, like a lagging indicator, like actually losing weight or
Mm-hmm.
actually gaining muscle. But also progress in terms of a lagging indicator. So lagging indicator would be like, oh, you were consistent also you were like consistently in a calorie deficit for 3 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
You logged all your foods yesterday. Show them kind of like these smaller things that would lead to progress.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to do, of course, those things. Um, one of the key things that we have is, of course, a streak, right?
Yeah.
That is actually, it seems like a very trivial, small thing, but I can think the human psychology really kind of responds to that. People want to keep the streak going. And like I told you, we would tell people how they were doing in terms of like, whether they were staying consistently in their deficit. So I think, and then the other thing is again more um, nuanced. This whole thing, what I mentioned around the positive reinforcement.
Mm.
So we always try to be positive. That's the reward, right? Also, like, hey, I did this. Awesome. Great job. Keep going. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
let's be honest. Sometimes you just need a little pat on the back. And you
Yeah.
just need someone to say, hey, man, awesome. I know this is difficult. Keep going. You look at our streak, by the way, and a little bit on our Instagram, we try to actually not necessarily stay away from, giving like recipes and things like that because people need them. But we also know that there's so many sources for people to get recipes. We say, hey, what is the other thing that people need? People need motivation.
Mm.
So you go on Instagram, a lot of what we do is like give people like motivation and change how they think about progress. Change how they think about progress. You look on a streak, we have, I think, a set of amazing quotes every time someone hits the next streak. We give them a little bit like, hey, you're doing great, or we give them a little bit of a motivational quote.
Mhm.
I think actually that's pretty cool. So we give them like a daily motivation quote to kind of keep them going as well.
Yeah. No, I think that's very important aspect. Because yeah, I think with the streak, like when you see the number constantly going up, that that makes it more likely that you'll continue to, um, be proactive and eat properly, which
Yeah.
is really important. Yeah.
Okay, what do we
Um.
have today? Today, the quote is big changes happen when we take small actions consistently over time. There you go.
Yeah. That's nice. That's nice.
Uh,
And like, can people use it for like muscle building or like, working out purposes as well, or is it more focused for weight loss and nutrition?
yeah, so when you start, you can choose different goals. We have kind of
Yeah.
like three main goals: lose weight, build muscle or gain weight, and then the other one's kind of like maintain or just kind of stay in shape, keep fit.
Yeah.
So you can choose the other goals as well. Now we still look at it from a lens of nutrition. Okay.
Mm.
So, if someone wants to gain weight or build muscle, there are kind of like two key things where how your targets will change. First of all, you're not going to be in a deficit. You're going to actually be in a slight um, surplus because if you want to build muscle and gain weight, you need a slight surplus. And then the other one is it's less focused on kind of calories, more focused on protein intake.
Mm.
So um, again, if you want to work out and build muscle, you need to make sure you consume enough protein. And then, of course, you can track your workouts. You can connect with your Apple Health, or you can just tell Welling, or Welling will make an estimation for your workouts, or you can just log it in there. We don't have, and we do have people who ask for like suggestions on what kind of workout should I do if I want to, have a certain goal.
Yeah.
Um, and then we also obviously have people that ask like, what should I be eating either before or after our workout?
Yeah.
What we don't really have yet, we probably want to improve on that is have almost like a personalized workout library for you,
Mm-hmm.
that I can imagine like, okay, this is really your goal and here's like your workout plan, here are like 5 exercises that we recommend you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I think we can do a better job at that. We actually have increasingly more people asking for it. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something we'll probably think about adding. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And in terms of success that you found throughout, are there any standouts that you've received? Any comments you received that really stood out to you?
I mean, honestly, of course, we have people that had quite some weight or high BMI, let's say, and then we're able to track it and lose it. And then either long term, but also quite a lot of people say, oh, I was already able to gain results in just like the first month or the first 2 weeks. Actually, if you actually never done being mindful about what you're eating and you suddenly do, actually the first 2 weeks or the first few months, you can actually gain a lot of progress
Mm.
just because you haven't yet. So there's a lot of room for progress. So
Yeah.
we definitely have those. However, though, I would say actually most of our users are not like super overweight. They're like right there,
Mm,
they're starting
Mm.
to be overweight. And I would say that's usually the trigger point for people to say, oh, I need to now be, mindful about what I'm eating. I need to like
mm,
take care of my health. Um, to me, really one of the successes is like, how long can you keep doing this? How long can you be mindful about what you're eating? Why? It takes a long time for people to build habits. We
Mm-hmm.
do not believe in quick, let's lose weight for 2 months, start myself,
mm,
and be ready for summer, and then after that I'll binge again. Like I guess you can. That's not really what we try to convey to our users. We want you to hopefully this is the last app you ever need, and hopefully maybe after a few years you don't need it anymore because you just got into this habit already.
Mm-hmm.
So habit building for us is really important. So we look at how long can people do this for a long time, and like I shared with you, our daily retention rate, our daily engagement rates, um, are much higher than actually industry standards. That's a big win to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing that I love comments like again, where people don't feel like they are tracking their food. I shared a comment where people say, "Oh, I just feel like I'm chatting with my friend," but then also stuff like, "Oh, I was interviewing this lady, and she's like, it's the first time I feel like I don't have to take a break from my normal life to start
mm.
dieting."
Mm.
We all
That's
feel
good.
this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where people are like, you know what? I'm gonna start today. I'm gonna start dieting, and I'm gonna like do this for a few months. Like people see it as kind of like this temporary thing where they have to temporarily change their life completely. And I'm gonna eat salads for 2 months, and you can, I guess, if you, I don't know, maybe if a wedding and you have like this really strict date. But other than that, I'll be like, that's not the way to go. I have
Mm-hmm.
this one friend. That's what he does. This whole all or nothing mentality. You
Mm,
know, um, and yeah, again, that's not what we try to do. That's not what we promote. We promote kind of like slow progress, build habits. But when people say that, where they say like, oh, it doesn't feel like I am logging. It doesn't feel like I have to take a break from my life to actually do this. That's another big win and success to us. It just means
Mm-hmm.
that we have been able to create a product experience for them that feels very effortless and enjoyable to use.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
I'm just curious. How do you guys make money? Like, what's the business model for the app?
Very simple. Like any other app out there, you just pay a subscription.
Yeah.
You can pay monthly, 3 months for a whole year,
Yeah.
and that's it. And then you get access to all features.
Okay.
So we're keeping it pretty simple right now. No different tiers, things like that. Yeah.
How does the free version compare to like the paid subscription?
So we currently don't have a freemium version.
Okay.
Of course, there is a free trial, so you can
Okay.
try it for 7 days for free. See if it's something that you like. If you don't, cancel it. If you do, continue the plan.
Yeah.
So we don't have a freemium yet, for a few reasons. Um, let's call one business reason and one like user experience reason. I guess from a business reason point of view, we still need to run the AI, which is relatively costly,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't really thought about how we want to monetize the free tier yet. I guess we could do
Okay.
advertising and stuff like that, but we might do this in the near future, offer a freemium tier. And then on the other side, I would say like uh, people value your product more, and if they commit or if
Mm-hmm.
they actually pay something. And then obviously also when you start a health journey, we want you to maybe like put something down psychologically, even just makes you commit.
Mm,
I mean, you're just a bit more committed when you're like, okay, well, I'm paying for this tool now. I might as well use it.
Yeah.
Whatever gets you to like getting into the habit of it, whatever it
yeah.
is. So I think it gives people better results if they actually commit something as well. In this case, I guess financially. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. A question I had as well was a problem that Welling hasn't solved yet that you want to tackle in the future or in like an upcoming phase or something of the product,
Yeah,
um, what would
yeah,
that be?
yeah. I think Welling can do two things better, and I'm really excited about that. One is actually um, give it much broader memory. So, I'm not sure how familiar you guys with AI and LLMs, but of course, memory is now a big topic. You can either
Mm.
do memory or context windows, or you have these racks, which is like a way to pull data into the app. Um, so we want to be able to capture more things beyond just food, right? So we have this kind of chat interface, and people are trusting to interact with it, and we get a lot of other great insight other than just what they've been eating. Now, what they've been eating is already really good, but some people tell us, for example, how they feel,
Mm.
or we have people trying to tell us what supplements they're taking or something like that. We don't really act on that. Um, so I want us to be a bit more smart around really creating an even more personalized profile, so that this really becomes like a personal coach, personal AI for you. So kind of extending the memory in a smarter way. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing is I would love if we can provide more kind of cross health insights or longer term insights to our users.
Okay.
So right now, we obviously are tracking only food, nutrition, and we do some workout as well. But what we have seen is that users are actually telling Welling other things as well about their health. Again, like I showed you, like they're telling Welling what supplements they're taking. Um,
Mm.
Majority of our users are female. They try to tell Welling how their menstrual cycle is going. You know, um, some people tell how they slept, or like their sleeping tracking kind of thing. Um, we literally had people sending a photo of their blood test results into Welling. Um,
Okay.
not sure what this person was expecting.
Yeah.
But we right now Welling doesn't handle anything if it's not food. So if you like send
Mm.
that,
Right.
then they would just say like, okay, I don't know how to log this. You know, well, you could ask it a question. Now, what is this kind of showing me? It's showing me that the more people interact with Welling, the more they want Welling to know about them. And
Mm.
that kind
Mm.
of makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, imagine you have your doctor and you go to see a doctor for a certain thing, and then people always have like, oh, by the way, last week this happened. I'm not sure if that's related, but I just want you to know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
expectation is that he will give a better diagnosis or better advice to you, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Mm.
what we totally see with Welling as well. People want Welling to know more so that it can give you better responses, better
Mm.
guidance. So I
Yeah.
would love to be able to offer that to our users. And then, we know other type of problems that people have. Um, sleep is, something that people deal with, poor sleep. And I would love for us to help solve those kind of problems through a lens of diet. So if people would track their sleep with us, and we know kind of like how they're sleeping, we could give them some cross health metric insights. Oh
Mm.
well, you didn't sleep very well. Well, it seems like your last meal was pretty late, because if you
Yeah.
eat very late right before you go to sleep, that could affect your sleep quality. Or
Mm-hmm.
you had caffeine, at 5 p.m. That why don't you try earlier and see if that improves?
Mm.
That would be amazing. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, yeah. So I think we have the ability to do so. I think we have the platform, the design, the interface to do so. Um, we were just still a very young startup, so we try to focus. So right now we're very much focused on solving diet tracking for people, because among
Yeah.
all the things that you can track, diet is probably the most difficult and annoying one to track,
Yeah.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
need to do it 5 times a day. It's very ambiguous. So I think once we were able to solve that for our users, we can think about adding other categories, and then we can give them very unique insights that they're not able to get in the other apps.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And just another question that came to mind. Um, are you able to track, like, let's say someone has an Apple Watch, like all their other, like, maybe running data or like sleeping data and that kind of stuff? Like, does Welling integrate with that yet or no?
We integrate with Apple Health,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
Um, Mostly just for workout right now, weight and
Mm-hmm.
workout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have any workouts, we will log that, burn calories, active calories. We
Yeah.
have that. We don't really have the other ones yet.
Okay.
It's definitely on the planning,
Yeah.
but we just want to make sure when we do it right,
Yeah.
in the near future.
No, that makes sense. And the last question I have for now is, what is one piece of advice you would give someone who, is starting their weight loss journey, either with Welling or just themselves? Like, is there any advice you can offer them?
I think one of the maybe biggest misconceptions is this whole all or nothing mentality, really, what I see. Where people say
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm going to start my diet now, and then
Yeah.
I'm going to suddenly and completely change how I eat and how I do things. And, from what I've seen, that is kind of like the less chances for long-term results because it's
Hmm.
not sustainable. You're much
Yeah.
better off making small, 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 small changes.
Yeah.
And so that would be one of my biggest advice. Also, that includes not being restrictive, like I said, right? People are like, okay, I'm going to start dieting. I'm going to cut out all cakes and all chips and all whatever I really, really like to eat. Well, if
Yeah.
you're going to do that, you're going to be miserable very
Hmm.
soon. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do this whole dieting thing anymore at all.
Yeah.
So really don't see it as a dieting, just see it as, okay, I'm going to slowly start eating better. And if you don't know how, you can obviously you can do your own research. You can use something like Welling to ask like, hey, where in my current kind of food intake should I start with, right? Maybe you don't want
Hmm.
to change everything, just like something small.
Yeah.
Maybe, during lunch, you usually eat something very high carbs. You can say, okay, well, cut down a little bit on carbs, try to add some more protein. That's it. Like, try that,
Yeah.
right? And start building those habits. So that would be my advice. Start small and start. Start small and
Hmm.
start, but don't like completely go overboard and expect results immediately. Uh, that's not realistic, and it's not sustainable. You're much better off really slowly build habits, and you can do those. Those will stay with you for years and years to come.
So Adi and I, we both love reading, and we always ask our guests what their favorite book is. Do you have a favorite book in mind, or if you don't read, do you have a podcast or something you can recommend to our listeners?
Oh, okay. I don't actually. I've stopped reading some time ago. I feel like a lot of these books, like they could be like a 10-minute video, or they could be like a 15-minute
Oh,
video. You know what
right.
I mean? Like a lot of the
Yeah.
Yeah.
core insights are like, do I need to read the whole book? Um, Maybe a documentary that I watched.
Sure.
I watched Game Changers. Not sure if you guys know about this. It's basically this guy who talks about nutrition, and then, but he goes completely plant-based. So he makes this whole argument around
Oh, okay.
plant-based. I think it's pretty interesting. And then, of course, the big topic when people go plant-based is like, oh, are you getting enough protein?
Hmm.
Hmm.
You know, so he explains that how you can still get enough protein, and how plant-based is obviously in the definitely so much better for you. Um, but it's pretty interesting. There's this one guy, one quote in that, and he's asking this bodybuilder, and he's like, how can you um, how can you eat plants and be strong as an ox? That's what he asked him. And then the guy was like, have you ever seen an ox eat meat? Like
Hmm.
obviously it's possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty interesting. I actually tried out of watching that happen. I tried to eat completely plant-based for like a week or like 10 days, but then I was like, oh, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to eat meat, but not only that, it's like when you go out for food,
Yeah.
there's just not that many like pure
Unlimited.
plant-based options out there.
Mm.
And living in
Hmm.
Asia, a lot of it is eating out with friends and things like that. But I thought that's a pretty interesting documentary.
No,
All right.
that's very interesting for sure. Um, and last question, is there anything you would like to share with our audience? This could be like a final message from you or just plugs for any of your websites or applications or anything else.
I mean, give the app a try. If you are thinking about eating better. Look, I know so many people that always wanted to eat well and get more healthy, but they're busy and they don't want to think about it. I am that person. I made that product for myself. So we try to make the product in a way that can actually adapt to that. Most
Mm-hmm.
of the people that use our product are what we call them like busy professionals. And we really try to give people like their own personal assistant in helping them through. So give it a shot, or not, which is fine too. But you can still try to eat healthy and eat mindful. So I wish everyone good luck on their health.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your words, final words today. And yeah, really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much, guys. It was great.